Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am so excited to introduce our next speaker on the Disrupted 2024 Future of Work Summit. I'm Tammy Alvarez, the founder of the Career Winners Circle, and with me today, I have got Kendall Berg. She and I are complete fangirls of each other in terms of our career strategy perspectives. So, Kendall, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom today.
I am so excited to be here. I'm always thankful when fellow creators and coaches and guides reach out for these opportunities to really share amazing content with their broader audience.
Awesome. And you've got so much great things to share today. I can't wait to hear all of it. But before that, let me give you a proper introduction to our audience who may not be familiar with how great you are. So, as the founder of That Career Coach, Kendall Berg helps her clients and followers understand how to find progression, recognition, and support in their careers. Don't we all feel like we could use a little bit more of that? She's been featured in Newsweek, Boss Babes, and Business Insider, sharing her tips and advice. She also regularly supports her more than 300,000 followers across Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube with her take on playing the corporate game. She's also the author of the upcoming book, Secrets of the Corporate Game, and it's estimated to come out in November of this year. I've just published my own book, so I know what a labor of love that is, and I cannot wait to read it. That Career Coach social media and podcast provides insights on corporate behind the scenes, recommendations on how to advocate for yourself and progress your career, and advice for navigating difficult interpersonal situations, of which there are usually plenty. So, Kendall, welcome again. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. And thank you for that great introduction. I know we've talked before about, writing a book and trying to consolidate your thoughts and how amazing it can be to really try to distill information down. And so that's what I've kind of tried to do for today as well. I'm excited to share some good tips with your audience.
Great. Then I am going to let it go.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. As Tammy said, my name is Kendall Berg. I'm the founder of That Career Coach. You can find us on social media, YouTube, pretty much anywhere. And today we're going to be talking about creating your thriving career through brand building and networking. And this is something that's very near and dear to my heart because I feel that there are so many tips and tricks and nuance to the corporate world that, just to be honest, nobody teaches us. We're taught to do the tactical, technical part of our jobs, but nobody takes the time to take a step back and say, who are you? Why are you unique? What do you add to an organization from a value perspective? And then how do you leverage that knowledge to help you progress your career in the future? And we're going to start with really what drives success. So this is an interesting question because everybody's answer is always different. A lot of people think of success as a particular title or as a particular income. And when we think of what drives us to that success level, I get the answer a lot that it's right place, right time. There's a measure of luck. Well, that person's just really naturally extroverted or really naturally confident. And I want you to pick somebody from your own career who you've worked alongside that you think of as successful, that you, in your mind's eye, think, wow, this person did a really great job. They progressed very quickly. They got that title. They got that money. They got that role at that certain company. And when you think of that person, there's usually defining characteristics of that individual that separate them from everybody else you've known in your career. You've probably known many people at that seniority level or many people with that income. And yet for some reason, this particular person is the one you think of as being successful. And a lot of that has to do with how they have built their personal brand, how they have differentiated themselves from their peers, but also how they represent themselves on a daily basis when they show up to work. That is really where that success comes from. One of the popular ways that leaders will talk about this is they'll say that this person has executive presence. I love the term. I hate the way it's utilized because when you're told you need to work on your executive presence, no one knows what that means. People think I need to talk more. I need to talk more confidently. I need to have more value to say. I need to ask the right questions. But the reality is that executive presence is a lot about how you've built your personal brand before you're ever in the meeting where they say you need that presence. And so that's where we're going to spend some time today, is understanding who are the biggest influencers in your career, how do you network with them, and then how do you establish a personal brand that's going to lead to that thriving career that we all want. So what does it mean first to get to self-advocate? I have this saying up here, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So fun aside from early on in my career, I thought this said the squeaky mouse gets the cheese. I've heard that version too, but I was told that that is incorrect. So you guys are getting the squeaky wheel gets the grease today. And people say this a lot in corporate. Oh, she got a promotion because she complained. He got a promotion because he talks all the time. They got a promotion because they know the boss. But there is some truth to the fact that the more well-known you are, the more you stand out, the more likely you are to get the attention that you need for your career to progress. And self-advocacy is how we do that within the confines of the corporate world. Now, self-advocacy, as a quick preface statement, does not need to feel icky. Our goal here is not to be the sleazy coworker who steals credit and won't shut up in meetings. That is not our objective at all. But it does mean that we need to understand ourselves first, and secondarily, who are the other people who are going to be willing to go to bat for us. The ways that we do this is we network. We are going to build an expansive network with our influencers and identify the individuals who have the most control over our career. Then we're going to build our brand, define who we are, and especially who we want to be, and perpetuate that belief system throughout the organization. Then we're going to trade non-promotable tasks for big impact projects. Every time I use this phrase, everybody asks, what is a non-promotable task? We'll spend some time on there today. Then we're going to skill build and diversify so that we never stop learning. We always keep progressing. And then we're going to learn to ask the right questions, or for some of you who are tuning in, just start asking questions in general. If you're not speaking up on meetings, if you're not asking questions, how do you learn that practice in a way that's going to be conducive to where you want to go? So we'll start with who has power over your career. So I coach everyone that I work with that you are the only person who has a responsibility for your career. If you choose not to invest in yourself, you will not progress. If you choose not to advocate for yourself, you will get stuck. If you choose not to change and leave a toxic job environment, the only person who will suffer is you. But you do not have exclusive power over your career. There are other people with more sway, more seniority, more tenure, who do have a say over how your career continues to move forward. And it becomes increasingly important to identify who those people are. And the way that we do that is we create what I call an influencer list. So this is a reference to the book Stealing the Corner Office by Brendan Reed. He is cited down below if you're interested in getting a copy of that book. Anytime I mention his book, I always caveat. He is an interesting writer and clearly has some feelings, okay? But there are really great tidbits in his book about how some of these things play out in situations that I definitely recommend reading so that you can figure out where you're identifying. But don't hold his book against me. All right. So what you're going to do is you're going to create in an Excel something that looks like this. And you're going to list out the people, not just in your team. So when we talk about a network, we think of a network like a tree. The tree trunk is your vertical. So that is your boss, your boss's boss, your boss's boss's boss, all the way up to the CEO. That's the tree trunk. But a tree has many, many branches, and branches serve a unique purpose that they help you get the nutrients, the attention, the recognition that you deserve. And so when you create this influencer list, you don't want to just look at your tree trunk. You want to look at your branches. Who are the leaders across the organization? Who are your boss's peers, your boss's boss's peers? Who are those people that you know are big players in your space? You're going to list them out and their titles. Then you're going to create columns and title them just like on the slide. And the first one is going to be relationship. So if you already have a relationship with this person, they get a 5. If you don't have a relationship with this person, they get a 1. We're just going to start simple. Seniority. If they're more senior than you, they get a 5. Same level as you, they get a 3. Less senior than you, they get a 1. Risk. So this is risk reward. Does having a relationship with this person pose a risk to your career? This could mean that they have a reputation for being really harsh or really difficult to work with. Or it could be that building a relationship with this person means that someone in your tree trunk may not be very happy with you. High risk is a 1, low risk is a 5. Power. Do they have power over the organization? When they talk in a meeting, does everybody get quiet to listen? It's the easiest way to measure this. The answer is absolutely every call, 5. If it's sometimes 3, if it's never 1. Exposure. Does this person have the opportunity and ability to give you the exposure that you're going to need for your career to progress? If the answer is yes, they can get you in meetings with more senior people. The answer is a 5. If not, the answer is a 1. Fear, do they strike fear across the organization? They have a reputation for firing people. They have a reputation for being really difficult. They scare you just on a personal level. If they're a fear square, give them a 1. If they're no fear, give them a 5. Validation, does this person have the ability to validate your work and give it more credibility? Yes, 5, no 1. And then does this person have an impact on your future? Would you like to work with them at some point in the future? Would you like to partner with them some point in the future? Would you like them advocating for you in the future? If the answer is yes, they get a 5. If the answer is maybe 3, no 1. Then you're going to total those up. You're going to get a total. You're going to stack rank them, and you're going to have your rank 1 through 5. So once you have your influencer list and you know how everybody is scored, you're going to remove the people who are 3 levels more senior than you to a separate tab. We're not going to delete them. We're going to keep them, but we're going to move them out because for many organizations, anyone 3 levels more senior than you is probably a distraction. Now, if you have a pre-existing relationship with them in the relationship column, you're going to keep them in this form. But if not, go ahead and move them out. They're people we want to build relationships with. We would never turn down the opportunity to get coffee or lunch or dinner with these people, but you reaching out directly to them may not be as conducive for your career in the short term. Then for everyone who's left on your initial tab, you're going to find your top 5 and you're going to build initial relationships with them. Now, you may already have relationships with people in your top 5. You may work with them on projects, but we're going to be much more targeted in how we do this. So we're going to schedule a 30-minute coffee chat, right? If you're in person, great. Actually buy them coffee. If you're not, virtual coffee chats are becoming much more common. Please don't feel awkward. The biggest pushback I get at this step is people say, well, I don't want to reach out to them and schedule a call. I don't know them. Do it. If somebody reached out to you and said, hey, I heard you're great, I'd love to get to know you, would you be like, no? No, you're going to say, absolutely, I would love to, right? So reach out, schedule that call. What you're going to do in that call is you're going to do a few things. 1, you're going to give your elevator pitch of who you are, what your brand is. We're going to talk about that in a minute. 2, you're going to identify something that they are very good at. What is the skill that they bring to the organization that when you hear people talk about them, they're always saying, oh, they're such a great presenter. They're a great communicator. They are so easy to work with. And you're going to ask them to teach you that skill. Studies have shown that when we teach someone something, we actually think of them more fondly than if we are taught something by somebody else. Oftentimes, we think of this in reverse. We think, oh, if I can help them, they'll appreciate it. But the reality is studies show that when they help us, they think of us more fondly. Find something they're great at and ask them to help coach you and teach you and how to do that thing more effectively. It will strengthen your relationship. And the last thing you're going to do in this meeting is if this conversation goes well, if you feel really comfortable, natural, you're learning a lot, we want to ask them to continue meeting with us. So this comes into the how and when to cultivate step. So for somebody who's high on your list, who we really like, we want to meet with them at a minimum of quarterly. That's going to allow us to stay top of mind with that person. If they go into a conversation where we're brought up, they're going to say positive things. They're going to advocate on our behalf. They're going to know who we are. But we also want to make sure that the relationship is comfortable enough and based in enough information that we can talk to them quarterly without running out of things to discuss. If the relationship is okay, but we know that they're really high on our influencer list, we want to meet with them at a minimum of twice a year. And if the person that we've met with has a high fear scale and we did not connect with them, we're going to move that to annually. So that's about the frequency of how you want to meet with them. The last piece of this is that every person that I've interacted with in corporate really falls into one of 2 categories from a personality type, and there's different ways that we navigate each. So the first is what I call the king. The king wants to be in charge. The king wants to be the ruler. Everybody works for the king. You are but a peon in the king's world. We've all worked with these people. The second category is what I call the specialist. So the specialist wants to be right. They want to know what's going on. They want to be the person who brings the most information, the most accuracy. They're always seen as a SME in their space. Okay. I personally am a specialist. I like to be right. I like to know what's going on, just personally. All right. When you're interacting with these 2 different types of personalities, Tammy mentioned earlier that there's always going to be interpersonal conflict. The way you smooth conflict over with these 2 people is very different. So when you're smoothing conflict with a king or you're building a relationship with a king, hey, I'm here to help you. I'm really here to support you so that you can be successful. I really want to be that person that allows you to continue progressing your career. I want to help you grow. I want to help you get this project executed. I want to make sure your work gets done and prioritized, right? You are the helper to the king. That smooths most kings' ruffles almost immediately. Whereas a specialist, if you said that, would not care at all. What the specialist wants to hear is, well, obviously you have so much more context in this space, or you're clearly really knowledgeable, or you and your team do this so well. Obviously, I don't want to get in the way of that. I want to help you guys. That is what a specialist wants to hear. They want to hear that they know what they're doing, that they're right. And so when you have these influencer conversations, but also just general meetings with these two personalities, you want to make sure you're approaching conflict resolution, but also your role in certain projects the way that they would want to hear it. That way, you're going to build strong foundational relationships with them that allow them to become advocates for you as well. So then this comes to who are you, right? This is always the harder part. I joke that when we are growing up, people ask us what we want to be all the time, right? A firefighter, a princess, a Kentucky Derby rider, whatever it is. And then when we grow up, everybody's like, hey, you've got to figure it out now. You're good. You don't need anything. It's not true, right? None of us know what we want to be when we grow up, even when we are grown up, right? And so when we think of who are you, we're going to think of how you want to be known. And this is what I would get put on a t-shirt if I was ever going to make them. It says your brand should walk into a room before you do and stick around long after you leave. All right. Corporate is a lot like high school in this regard. If you have a reputation for a certain thing, before you join a meeting, people are going to be talking about it. And after you leave, people are going to be talking about it. Right. And so we want to have a really strong brand that precedes us and follows us. Okay. There's probably been projects that you've been on where someone said, oh, we're adding John to this project. And everybody goes, oh, okay. John's a pain in the butt, right? No offense to Johns out there, but you know what happens to somebody. But you've also probably been on projects where they said, hey, we're going to bring Tammy into this. And everybody goes, oh my gosh, Tammy's amazing. She's so smart. She's so organized. I'm so glad she's working on this, right? She has a brand and it enters before she does, right? And so the importance is to build your brand. So how do you do this? You're going to outline who you want to be, all right? And you're going to outline what you want your brand to be. And there's a couple tools that I use to do this. We'll kind of talk through them. But building your brand becomes really important when we are trying to establish ourselves in a new organization or at a new seniority level or in a new team, okay? So what your brand is, the way I do this is I create these 4 categories. So this is going to be your image. It's going to be your mission, your values, and your vision. Right now, when I say your image, this is not like I look really great in green, so I'm going to wear green every day. All right. We're not actors and actresses, most of us. So make sure that your image is something that this is how you want to be thought of when you walk into a corporate room. Now, to an extent, your image does have to do with the way you dress, the way you present yourself. Right? People hate to hear this. I know it's not popular. But when you walk into a room and a sweatshirt and baggy sweatpants, even if you're brilliant, nobody in that room is thinking, oh my gosh, I really am excited they're the CEO. Okay. It has an impact on your brand. Whereas if you show up in a button down or a jacket over a t-shirt and you're dressed a little more intentionally, you get a better reputation, right? I'm not saying it should be this way. I'm saying it is, right? So think of how your image is. They say dress for the job you want. That's this. How do you want to be showing up to work? Second piece is your mission. Why are you doing what you're doing? If you tell me the paycheck, I'm going to push you a little bit harder than that, okay? Because the mission is why you get up and you enjoy your job in the morning, right? What gets you up aside from your cup of coffee that you have before work starts? What is your mission? For me, I always say my mission is building the next generation of great leaders, right? This was true in my corporate world. It's true in my coaching world. My mission is to make sure that the next generation of leaders is successful. That's what gets me excited, right? Your values, these are your non-negotiables. This is how you identify toxic workplaces. This is what you try to show up and do in your job every single day. For me, I don't like to micromanage, right? I like to deliver high accuracy, thorough work that pushes an organization to be better. I like to automate, streamline, and improve, right? These are my values. This is the type of work that I like to do. You're going to identify those that are not technical. You're not going to say, I love to code. Right? Think of non-technical aspects of your work that you really value and assign these here. Try to think of 3 to 5. And then your vision. Where are you going? This does not have to be a title, right? For very few people is this actually a title, but your vision is, I want to continue building scale. I want to continue working in certain industries. I want to push my organization towards automation and improvement. I want to drive better revenue and better profit, right? What is that vision that you're bringing with you to work every day? Once you have these four, it's much easier to hone in on what your personal brand is. From these four, you're going to try and distill it down into 2 sentences. Now, this is a little more art than science. I help a lot of clients with this, but my personal brand is Kendall is the person that you throw into the black hole where you have no idea what's going on and everything's in chaos, and she will help you get results. She does this by automating, streamlining, and improving while building the next generation of leaders. That is my elevator pitch. Now, the language kind of differs each time I say it, but it is always in a black hole. It is always bringing organization to chaos. It is always creating the next generation of leaders. That brand is how I describe myself. And so if you ask anyone who's managed me in the last 15 years, that's exactly how they're going to describe me. They're going to use the exact same language because that's what I use. And we're all essentially giant parrots. Okay. So first you're going to outline who you want to be. You're going to establish that 2-sentence brand, and then you're going to start selling yourself and your capabilities. I know that Tammy describes this as like building your sales team. That influencer list, they should know your pitch. They should know that it's true. They should have proof that it's true. They should be willing to repeat it in a group. And then you want to set yourself up for success to fulfill that elevator pitch. If I say I'm great at bringing organization to chaos, and then you throw me into chaos and I don't bring organization and I fail, I'm not set up for success. All right. You need to be able to follow through on your brand. And then you need to look for opportunities to apply that brand. If you put me in a situation where everything is already organized and beautiful and easy, I'm not going to add a lot of value, because that's what I do, is I bring that organization. You want to put me in crazy places so that I can add value. So when you are looking at how you apply your brand, look for opportunities that allow your brand to shine and to be unique and to be strong. And we'll talk about more about how to do that. So this requires you to drive impact across your organization. So once you have your brand, you've built out your network, now you have to follow through, right? Now you have to be a standout. And I think when I talk about playing the game, a lot of times it gets a lot of hate because we don't think of playing the game as fair. We think of it as, oh, she manipulated people to get something she wants. The reality is that you're going to be intentional, you're going to be strategic, but you're also going to have to do the work. If you don't do the work, at some point somebody realizes it and you get fired, right? I know we've all had a boss who maybe got away with it, but on the grand scheme of things, you got to put in the work. And so it's really important to understand non-promotable tasks and how does it hurt you. So the example that I always give is, imagine that I hire someone to run a report every Thursday at 7 a.m. Okay. Their job description is must understand Excel, databases, and be able to run a report and email it to a group of stakeholders, right? Very simple job description, which they were all that clear. And I say, hey, every Thursday, your job is to run this report. And that person comes in and they run that report. And there's no mistakes, and it gets sent out every Thursday. And that's all they ever do. Would you promote them? Should I promote them? Probably not, right? You don't get promoted for doing your core job. You get paid for doing your core job, right? But then let's say that same person comes in and they send that report, and then they go meet with every single one of the stakeholders on that email and say, hey, how are you using this? Is this helping your organization? Is it driving your business forward? And then they make enhancements to the report based on that feedback. And they track the impact of those enhancements across the organization. And they do a share out and say, hey, as a result of the changes that I've made, I've impacted the organization by increasing efficiency 20% and saving the firm 5% of its operational costs. Now, do they get promoted? Yes. Same core job, better execution, and showcasing leadership at the next level. So a non-promotable task is really going to be those opportunities or those core work BAU tasks that you do. It does not mean that you can't change a non-promotable task into a promotable one. The example with the report. Suddenly a non-promotable task that was just repeated got turned into a promotable task, and effort and share out and credit for all that work that had been done. You can absolutely change them. But what's more important is also to be identifying big impact projects across your firm. There's a couple steps to this. One is understanding your strengths, what we just went through. What are you good at? What do you want to be known for? How do you separate yourself from your peers? Then look for opportunities to drive your organization forward. This is the biggest mistake I see with people junior in their career, so I'm going to take a quick second to touch on it. You can have ideas. In fact, you should have ideas. The best people who move up quickly at junior and introductory levels are the people who have ideas and then execute them. Look for opportunities. Listen to the water cooler talk. I use this example. I had a client, this was a few years ago, really smart guy, really nice, kind of middle management. Everybody was complaining that the company slides were ugly, right? Everybody complained about them. Our brand colors are bad. Slides are outdated. We're all using like the OG black and white, Arial font. And so he took it upon himself to create a deck template of like, hey, here's all of our branding colors. Here's some images that go with it that you can pull from. Here's some template slides for all of these, and shared it out with his organization. Not part of his core job. He ended up winning an award from a CEO, got promoted, and got put over a larger team. It is a high impact project. It doesn't mean it has to be high effort. Okay, so listen, what are people complaining about? What are the problems? And then put yourself in a position to be the person who can fix those and bring resolution. And then as you're doing that, collaborate across multiple groups. I always call this the roadshow. Once your work is in progress or complete, who do you loop in? Who needs to know about this great work? Who are the people who need to be brought along with you on the journey of enacting this change so that, again, they become influencers, they become advocates, and they are willing to say that you are great at your job. So think about how you identify and seize these big impact projects across your company. I will caveat this, some organizations are not for innovation, right? They should all be for innovation, Kendall's opinion. Some don't support this. There's a little more nuance in navigating the interpersonal there when you work for a company that doesn't want change, that doesn't want things to get better. But in general, if you're in a good company, if you have supportive leadership, look for these big impact projects, look for ways to turn your non-promotable tasks into big impact projects, and then follow through on your brand. So the next step is skill building and diversification. So this is if you're not learning, you are failing. All right. Studies show that once someone hits the age of, I think it's 36, they stop taking trainings. They stop investing in themselves and they think, well, I have enough context that I know what I'm doing now. The reality is the world is much faster than we are. It's faster and slower in a lot of different ways. And if you are not learning new things, learning how to manage, learning how to lead, learning how to create a strategy, learning how to build a roadmap, learning how to use AI, you are falling behind and you will eventually plateau. If not, start moving backwards. And so these are some of the most in-demand skill lists. This is last year's from LinkedIn. And what I think is very interesting about this list is only one of them is technical. Everything on this list, everything companies are asking for, every skill they want you to have is soft skills, management, communication, customer service, leadership. Can you work with people well, right? So even if from a technical proficiency perspective, you get senior enough that you're not doing the technical work, you're removed from it, doesn't mean you stop learning. It means you start investing in yourself because that's going to show you dividends. That's going to help you keep progressing. The flip side of this is imposter syndrome. At some point, we all get to a level of seniority where we think, can I even do this? Right? If you have any kind of self-awareness and you're not a narcissist, you think, should I even be doing this job? Right? This is where imposter syndrome comes in. And I actually have a slightly different definition for it. So the definition at the top is what is in the dictionary. It's the persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of your own efforts or skills. Right? The Kendall definition is that this is not about lacking confidence. This is a lack of trust in yourself. If you do not trust yourself to learn new things, you will be an imposter. You will be put in a position that you cannot possibly fulfill. But if you are investing in yourself, if you are willing to do the hard work to learn new skills, new communication styles, new personalities, you will always be capable of doing the next level. It requires intentionality, strategy, and investment. If you're not willing to do those three things, you will fail. And so I would like for anybody who's watching this, who's thinking, okay, man, maybe I could create a brand, maybe I could network, but I don't know if I really could be a director. I don't know if I really could be a VP. I don't know if I really could be an executive. You can, you are capable. You have to keep learning those new things and you have to trust yourself enough to know that you are capable of learning those new things or you will fail and you will plateau. So learning to build that trust in self, that trust in learning becomes incredibly important, especially as you get more senior in your career and you have more people depending on you. So So the last piece is really asking the right questions. So you've built this brand, you've built a network, you're doing high impact projects, you're learning new skills, everything is great, you're moving up, you're feeling that momentum. In these calls, how do you ask the right things of the right people so that you get the right answers and the right recognition? So the first is that most executives have a val prop that kind of ties to that particular executive. So I have a finance background. Finance cares about savings and spend, and that's really it. Okay. So if you're talking to somebody in finance, how do you ask questions about, hey, how does this impact, the savings across the firm? Or, hey, in this project that I'm presenting to you, this is going to cost a little more short term, but here's the dividends we're going to get from this later. Put it in terms they care about and they understand. Build value to them in terms of how you're phrasing your projects. The next example is technology. Technology cares about client experience. It's the theory, depends on the tech org. All right. Technology cares about client experience. So how is what you're doing going to help them deliver a better client experience? Faster API loads, better technology interfaces, better UX UI, right? Put it in terms of what they care about. And marketing and sales cares about revenue. If it's not going to make them more money, they probably don't care about it much. They might if it's risk aversion or reputation damage aversion. It's another kind of category for them. But when you think of what executives care about, if you're leading a project, I always use audit as a great example for this. I think audit gets a bad rep because we think, oh, they're auditors. They're just here to tell us no. They just set regulation. If you're an auditor and you're going to present to a head of technology risks that you have found, you're going to tell them, hey, this is impacting client experience. This is a potential risk that somebody gets access to information that they shouldn't have. It has a security impact. And this is also going to ensure that we have fines when we go into this audit process. How can I help you fix those issues? How can I help you build a better customer experience? If that's how you approach that conversation, you're going to be so much more well received. You're going to have so much positive impact, positive advocates, good relationships. People I see who are really successful in compliance and audit always do this. Cater your communication to your audience. And then if you're asking them questions, ask them about the things they care about in relation to what you need. Again, a little more art than science. This takes time to learn, but I find it's really helpful before I go into meetings. If it's a big group and I know that I'm going to need to be on and be presenting, maybe I'm hosting the meeting, I will write out the executives, which division they're from, and what do they care about. And then I'll write out either how what I'm presenting relates to that or what I need to know from them about their area for what I'm doing to be successful ahead of time. Now, I don't sit there and read all my questions, but I find it's a helpful reframing before some of those bigger, more impactful meetings that sets me up for success to feel prepared and feel ready. Something I coach a lot of introverts to do, especially because extroverts tend to be able to think through those conversational topics on the fly a little quicker and feel more confident speaking up with something that's not fully fleshed out in their brain. Whereas introverts, we really like to be prepared. We really like to know what we're going to talk about. We like to have those talking points. Don't be afraid to do that homework ahead of a call, especially if it's going to be high impact for your career. So this takes us to where do you go from here? All right. You are responsible for your own success, your own growth. You have responsibility to your career. And most studies show that when you attend trainings like this, nothing actually happens. We spend a lot of really great time learning new things. We get excited about it. And then we go back and we do things the same way we always do things. It's just the reality of the job. And so here's the homework that you're going to have following this call if you really want to start taking control of your career and start building that brand so that you can get to that thriving career that you want. Step 1 is going to be build out your influencer list and set meetings in the next 30 days. You have a timeline, you have homework. Do it now. Second thing is you're going to build what I call your 11 list. So your 11 list is 5 things that you want to be known for at work, 5 things you don't want to be known for at work, and then your 1 to 2 sentence brand mission statement. All right. This will help you, 1, have a rubric to grade yourself. How did I do today? Was I good on my list of things I wanted to be? Was I bad on my list of things I don't want to be? Am I showing up at work representing the brand that I want to have? But also it helps you articulate what you like, what you're good at, how you want to show up at work to other people more effectively. Third thing is you're going to identify 1 project that you can propose to your leadership that would make your organization stronger. And then 1 project that's happening in your organization that you would like to get involved in that's beyond the scope of what you're currently doing. And then 4th and last is decide on 2 areas of self and personal development that you want or need to learn this year. All right. I do this for myself, my team, my clients. Every single year, we set 2 personal development goals. 1 is usually technical and 1 is usually soft skills. So for me, I spent a lot of time investing in my leadership management coaching skills. Obviously, I'm very passionate about that. So it's also very interesting to me. But on a technical side, my big learning opportunity this year is AI. I want to understand how it works more. I want to be able to use it more effectively. I want to be able to coach people in utilizing it more effectively, right? So decide those two things you want and need to learn this year, and then sign up for a course. It's okay if it costs money. Sometimes we have to spend money to invest in ourselves, but figure out how you're going to develop yourself so that you don't stop learning and growing. So I hope that you guys found this really helpful. This is a lot of information. We're trying to fit a lot into a short period of time, but I can promise you that from working with clients over the last 7 years, brand building and networking are the two biggest things you can do to propel your career forward. If you can master those, there's no limit to what you will be able to accomplish. There's no limit to where you'll be able to go with your career. So I highly recommend investing in those, get that thriving career. I have a 60% success rate of people who work with me landing their dream job by the end of the time they're working with me. It can happen. I know it can feel frustrating, but if you invest in yourself, you'll see that growth that you want. So if you want more information about me, I've tagged my socials here on the screen, but I so appreciate you guys tuning in, listening to today's chat, and being really ready to invest in yourself to take yourself to the next level.
That is great, Kendall. Thank you so much. So many knowledge bombs there today. And there's a few things I want to lean in on that I want to make sure that the people who are listening really double click into. And one of the things that you said that I thought was really cool is you do not get promoted for doing your core job. You get paid. Mm-hmm. And I think so many people feel like showing up is just enough. Or they think that, good work is good enough. And then they end up disenfranchised and feeling like the system let them down and all these things. And so I think that's really some good information to pass through in how can you determine, what's a non-promotable task versus something that's actually going to add value and get you noticed. So I just love that perspective.
Yeah, I think it's a common misconception. I see it a lot, right? Hey, I showed up, I did my job. I should get a raise and a promotion and all these things. And the way that I like to direct people is most companies will publish competencies at various seniority levels. Mm-hmm. Kind of depends on the company.
Yeah.
But the competencies, the skills at different seniority levels are different. And to get promoted, you need to already be displaying the skills at the next level. Yeah. Non-promotable tasks are the work solely at your level and solely in your scope. When you start thinking beyond that, how do I influence other parts of the organization? How do I start seeing myself as a senior analyst, a manager, a director? That's what's really going to help propel it forward. But I agree with you. I hear so often, the system let me down. I do good work. Nobody cares. I'm like, yeah, but you're doing good work for your level.
Yeah. Well, and it is interesting, right? Because there's such a feeling of lack of control in someone's career. And to your point of, you don't have exclusive control, but you have a lot more than you think you do. The way I like to think about it is, the system, is they pave the road. So you know where to drive, what side to drive on, although I'm in England right now, so even that gets me confused at the moment, and they put up those guardrails so you don't go rolling off a cliff. But you're driving the car. And you've got to figure out how fast you're going to go, what route you're going to take, and what tunes you're going to put on, as you're on this trip. And so I think this giving up all the control and just saying, oh, well, I did everything I can, it's cop out, right? And so people who are here at the Disrupted Summit are not copping out. So it's a lot of great advice. One of the things I want to pick your brain on a little bit more today is the concept of self-advocacy and that dreaded self-promotion. And so walk me through your thoughts around the relationship between brand and that self-advocacy piece.
Yeah. Everyone gets an icky feeling when they talk about themselves, right? I see this very
often.
At
every level, right? It's not, it just doesn't, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
And I see it very often in interview prep, especially. People are so great at talking about all the work they've done, but they never talk about what they did to make it happen. They don't talk about why they are the person that needs to be hired. They give examples of projects they worked on. And I think a lot of us really struggle with it because it feels like we're bragging. We're told when we're growing up to be humble, don't brag. And I'm not saying you should be bragging. We've all worked with that guy. But I do think you have to be willing to advocate for what you want. And I think of this as happening in 3 pieces. So the first piece is once you've established your brand, how do you ensure that your brand is followed through on and people know what it is? right? This is that part where you say, hey, I am great at bringing organization to chaos. I've noticed that this part of the organization is really struggling. I would love to step in and really help get that going. And then I can go move on and do something else. It's not a scope grab. It's an opportunity to support and to help, right? How do you use your brand to advocate for work that is promotable, that helps the company, and that advocates on your behalf so that you don't have to do as much advocating, right? So that's the first piece. The second piece in self-advocacy is building out your like army of people who think you're great. I am very intentional anytime I join an organization, change roles. I meet with everybody from the most junior person to the most senior person. My first 6 months on the job that I currently hold, my boss made fun of me. I think I did like over 200 meet and greets. Okay. I'm not joking. I'm very intentional about this. 200 meet and greets. And anytime I need anything, everybody jumps. Not because I'm super important or super senior, but because we like each other. We talk, we know each other. If I go to a happy hour, there's not a single person that I don't know, right? And that allows you to be more successful. It breaks down a lot of barriers. It pre-solves a lot of interpersonal conflict, right? And that can become really important. And then the last piece is, where do you shine and how do you do it differently? And this is where I think people get stuck. We can all do a technical job. I used to joke I could hire a monkey to do financial reporting. Probably not, be a bit of a stretch, but we can all learn to run a report. We can all learn to run a campaign. We can all learn to create a brand. What we can't learn are some of those natural things we do way more easily than a lot of our counterparts. So for me, it is that organization piece, and it's that coaching, mentoring piece. I fell into this career because it came very naturally to me. But even in my corporate job, every single person who works for me right now, except for one, worked for me before, right? They've all followed me. They all want to keep working with me. It allows me to build and retain and grow great talent. That is the skill that I bring. And when I interview for leadership positions at new companies, I say that I will bring you the best talent. It's not just me you get, it's my network. It's these
the whole posse. That's right. Yeah.
That is going to add so much more value to your organization than anything else I can tell you. And that's important. That is different for me than many leaders, right? There are other leaders who do this, but unless they're interviewing two of us at the same time, which would be pretty lucky for them, there's not a lot. And so once you understand how you are unique, it becomes so much easier to talk about that skill. It's not bragging. It's telling them, hey, if you need this, this is what I do well. If you have this, this is what I do well. Because you remember, you're also interviewing them. Do you even want to work with them?
That's right. That's
so long answer to your question, but I feel that brand building, that self-advocacy, they really go together, and they're really what differentiates the people who make it to those executive levels versus the people who get stuck.
Absolutely. And I think when you can build, wins in for the people that you're working with, in addition to the win that you're looking for, there's just seems to be some cultures are somebody has to lose in order for me to win. And that's as toxic and inaccurate as it could possibly be in terms of the more you can bake in wins for those that you're working with, your stakeholders, your other coworkers, the faster you're going to grow as well and get those people that are in your corner all day long.
I do want to touch on that slightly because I had this conversation the other day with a client. We all want our jobs to be a straight meritocracy. You do good work, you get good credit. The issue with a straight meritocracy is exactly what you just said. I have no incentive to help anybody else. And so what happens is we steal credit, we steal work, we steal scope, we raise our work above our head like a flag and wave it everywhere. Because if merit is the only thing you're measured on, not your interpersonal skills, not your communication, not your leadership, just your ability to do your technical job, you actually build a very toxic culture. And there are companies that come to mind when I say this that I won't put on blast here that I think had very good intentions of we want to build the best people to do the best work. But as a result, they built a culture that was very like dog eat dog. And so the reason companies are not straight meritocracy is because nobody wants to work for that person. Nobody wants to be led by that person. And so how do you build in that soft skills component? And so when you think of self-advocacy, I get a joke. My leadership always tells me, they're like, oh, Kendall's here. Time for the shout outs. Because every call I'm like, thank you so much, Tim, for getting me this. Thank you, Steve, for doing this. Thanks, Janie, for sending me this report. Because for me, they deserve credit as much as I do. I couldn't have done it had they not gotten me what I needed. And in the end, I feel that that builds a stronger culture. It makes them more likely to work with me again in the future. And so it's definitely true what you say, that like there can be wins for everybody. And it's probably better for you because now, again, more people who think you're great.
Yes, exactly. So we are going to leave it there. That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and for sharing how we can work with you. And we'll obviously make sure that those are in the summit notes as well. So Kendall, thanks again for your time today. It was great recording with you today.
Thank you so much for having me. And thanks everybody for tuning in. I wish you the best of luck in building your thriving career and finding the success that you deserve.